It's November 2024 and we asked ourselves, how should we start a chapter about climate change and artificial intelligence? We have just seen the effects of climate change again in Europe. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent. This time, Valencia was hit. Parts of the city were destroyed by flooding. Cars were thrown through the streets, houses destroyed. Hundreds of people died and thousands are still missing. While people in Valencia are still clearing rubble from the streets with shovels and brooms, climate change denier Donald Trump wins the US presidential election. In the hottest year since records began, the election campaign was also extremely heated, and once again, fake news played a central role. Trump himself says, "If you say it often enough and keep saying it, they will start to believe you." Unfortunately, this strategy seems to work. Trump has called climate change a big hoax and promised his supporters that he would end the Green New Deal. This shows clearly enough that it makes no sense to look at the current crises in isolation. The term polycrisis has been used to describe this situation. We are facing many interconnected crises simultaneously, and they all amplify each other. Wars, an energy crisis, a climate crisis, a water crisis. There are millions of displaced people, and democracies are eroding into autocratic regimes around the globe. In the past, the European Union was heavily dependent on Russian energy imports. Sanctions as a result of the Russian attack and the Russian response to these sanctions led to gas shortages and rocketing gas prices. Electricity costs are closely linked to the price of gas due to what is called the merit order effect. The price that the grid pays electricity suppliers is the same for all forms of electricity. Renewable sources and all the others have to sell at the price of the most expensive source. So due to the war and sanctions, gas had become by far the most expensive source of electricity. As a result, no matter if consumers had chosen renewable providers, electricity had become so expensive that many people worried about paying their bills. So the crisis of the war is interconnected with an energy crisis. In turn, because of the energy crisis caused by the lack of gas supplies, Germany has used more coal to generate electricity and has taken old coal power plants out of decommissioning. Burning coal produces more climate-warming carbon dioxide than natural gas. These additional CO2 emissions further fuel the climate crisis. And it goes on, hence the term polycrisis. Climate change leads to droughts and dried-up riverbeds. The Rhine, Danube, Amazon and Yangtze rivers have recently suffered from very dry periods or very high temperatures, with high evaporation rates. Furthermore, glaciers have been retreating for decades. This means that in summer, less meltwater flows into rivers. Summer droughts and heavy rainfall events are causing crop failures for farmers around the world. All this has resulted in millions of people being displaced. Right-wing extremists exploit the fate of displaced people to agitate against them and our parliamentary democracy. Fake news campaigns are used against many people who campaign for refugees or climate protection. In the face of the polycrisis, we might ask ourselves where to even begin if everything is somehow connected to everything else. When it comes to complexity, AI can help keep track of things and discover previously unknown factors driving events. Any debate about the climate crisis is no longer about proving that climate change is real. This has been known for decades. But that still doesn't stop some from claiming the opposite. Rather, it is about finding solutions that can compete economically with the unsustainable status quo. This is especially important in the super-election year of 2024, with right-wing parties on the rise in many Western democracies. If any of them win an election, they will almost certainly abolish state funding for climate protection as quickly as possible. This leads to another possible area of application for AI. In times of economic crisis and reduced government funding, many public welfare organisations unfortunately have to adapt to making do with limited resources. Here too, AI can help to find solutions. Let's get straight into the next lesson.